The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
Ah, yes, there she is, the UFC Apex, who houses so many UFC fights these days, and it will do so once again this weekend with UFC Fight Night. Song Yadong taking on Ricky Simone to close out what's been a very busy April for the UFC, which means it's been a very busy April for myself and that man right there, Ian Parker. Ian, how are we doing? And let's, before we get into the final card of the month, let's take a look back at Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blades, which was also in the Apex last week, and how we did betting-wise.
Let's not say we did. No, I'm kidding. You know what? This was not our best showing from best bets. One, Karina Silva, who also was our prop of the night, got canceled. That wasn't off to a great start. We did hit on Montel Jackson. He made it look easy. But, Selmersberger, I can't believe that fight went the distance. Credit to Jeremiah Wells for being able to survive that. Dana, I couldn't believe the way that ended. That ref really, I thought, could have gave him the last 50 seconds. But he was warned, so I understand that. And Curtis Blades, Brett, you talked about that fight. You said maybe stay away. I really thought he would implement the wrestling. Crazy thought to think he would not go and brawl with the real-life Ivan Drago. Sergey Pavlovich, I am sorry. You are the real deal, and I'm terrified of you even more now.
Yeah, it was one of those fights where it was like, well, I think Curtis is going to stand with him. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. I hope it works for him. It did not work for Curtis Blades against Sergey Pavlovich, who looks every bit like a heavyweight title contender. On we move to this weekend's UFC Fight Night. Again, headlined by Ricky Simone and Song Yadong. Very, very interesting fight at 135 pounds. That division, man, you talk about that division. It is so entirely stacked. You could go on for days without even mentioning these guys. These two are really kind of trying to crack in there and make a name for themselves still. Very, very close fight. Excited to talk to you about it from a betting perspective. Minus 125 for Ricky Simone in the 5-round fight against Song Yadong. 6-fight main card, and it goes down 7 Eastern on ESPN+. And let's go straight to that main event, man. Song Yadong, Ricky Simone. Song's still only 25 years old. Coming off of that round 4 stoppage due to the cut against Corey Sandhagen. Obviously, we've seen how good Sandhagen has looked in the time since. Ricky Simone, man, he's had a very interesting career. He came in with a lot of hype. I think they gave him that Uriah Faber fight thinking that was going to be sort of his stepping stone. It turned out to not be that way. Uriah Faber had a great night. I believe that fight was in Sacramento. So a little bit of a pause on Ricky Simone, but he's looked great in the last few years, and Vegas is clearly a believer, making him the small favorite here against a guy who has a proven track record in Song Yadong. How do you see this fight, man? I could see it going a number of ways. How do you see it going, Ian?
I agree with you. For me, this is where, and I hate to be cliche, but styles really do make fights. I think for someone like Song Yadong, we know he's got power, but Ricky Simone is a real-life Tasmanian devil, and the more he controls it and has, I guess, controlled chaos, the more dangerous he's going to be. His last fight against Jack Shore, the guy's never been finished before, and Simone made it look easy. He's one of the better wrestlers in the division. The cardio's there. He's actually a very underrated striker. If he could kind of just hone in a little bit, because Song Yadong is going to sit there on his back foot. He's going to look to counter, and that's what Song Yadong really does best. But I think there's a blueprint to follow here. I think being grapple heavy for Simone in this fight is the way to go. We saw Sandhagen, when he put Song Yadong on his back, it takes away that power and those counter opportunities. Plus, not really a threat off his back jiu-jitsu-wise. But if Yadong is able to come forward, he is the better boxer. I think his straight punches carry a little bit more power. However, I think this is where Simone's IQ has to come into play here. We've seen it he's become more educated. He's been getting smarter as he's become more seasoned. To your point, I think the Uriah Faber fight might have been the best thing for him. He may not agree with that, but since that fight, he's gotten better. He's gone on a tear. He's not just a wrestler who sits there and controls, especially with the way the scoring criteria is now. We're talking damage over control. He's doing both, and he's been making it look easy. This is going to be a really fun fight. For me, though, I'm going to make this a little interesting. I'm going to have 2 plays for us. One, I'm going to go over 2.5 rounds here. I do think that Song Yadong's durability and his defense off his back will keep Simone at bay, but Simone, I think, will be grapple heavy. The last way we're going to do this, Brett, this is going to be a little bit of a different fight. Now, certain books are offering point spreads. You're probably going to look at me like I have 6 heads. I like Ricky Simone here, plus 5.5 points. It is a real interesting type of bet, but if you break it down with the numbers, to me, this makes a ton of sense. Not a lot of juice. And we're going to get crazy here on the show this week.
Okay, so before we move on to the rest of this card, explain this to me like I'm 5. How does this work? How does a point spread exist in MMA betting?
So you got to go to the scorecards here and do it truthfully mathematically, okay? So if you look at the last fight, Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen. If you do the basic math here, Max Holloway, if you add his scores versus Arnold Allen's scores, he won by 7 points. That would not cash this ticket. So what that means for Ricky Simón, he can't get finished, clearly. If he does win and finishes Song Yadong, that bet does hit. But the real number thing here, Brett, if you notice on these scorecards, Arnold Allen only won 2 rounds on one scorecard. That means that Ricky Simón on all 3 scorecards would at least need to win 2 rounds, and therefore he would cover the 5.5 point spread. So if you like Ricky Simón outright to win, the points got you covered. If you don't think that Song Yadong is going to win 4-1 on 2 out of the 3, Ricky Simón with the points got you covered. This is a new way to protect your bet. This is a new way that if fights are really close, you can go with the points here. And the fact that it's only minus 175 and under 2-1, that means that the books are pretty much saying if Song Yadong is going to win, he's going to finish Ricky. But if you don't see that happening, points get you a win if Ricky finishes or if he wins 2 out of 3 rounds on all 3 judges' scorecards.
I like it. A little creative. And I know you like it because there's literally never been a way of betting ever created that Ian Parker didn't love. So we have 2 fans of this new DraftKings format here on UFC Best Bets. I like it, man. I think that we will incorporate this a lot into the show going forward. Let's move quickly to this co-main event. Caio Borralho taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk, I don't want to say he's similar to Ricky Simón at all, but another one of those guys who just had a little bit of, I think, some hype coming in. He was favored against Jimmy Crute. He was favored against OSP. He lost those fights. But since then, he's looked pretty good. 4-1 in his last 5. Borralho has looked, darn good. 3-0 since coming off the Contender Series. And that reflected in the line, minus 370. Are we interested at all in a flyer on Oleksiejczuk, or you like Borralho to keep it going here?
The problem with Oleksiejczuk here is that he's power in his hand, he's aggressive, he's kind of the brawling type, and he's fighting someone in Borralho that is very, very smart, and he does not let ego get to him. He's won a lot of fights by TKO, but where he is going to succeed is on the ground. I like to call him Lord Michael with his nickname here. Yes, he knocked out Sam Alvey. He just finished Cody Brundage. However, he's fighting someone who's a black belt, who's just really smart, knows where he can get the fight, and off his back, Oleksiejczuk is just no threat. So for Caio to get the fight to the floor, stand, just don't brawl. Use your jab, go forward, get the back. I really think he gets this fight done inside the distance. I like him in a parlay. I think this is going to be, they're really building him up quite intelligently here. On the Contender Series, we saw him develop. He's doing it the right way here. He's getting the right opponents. And this is another striker that is resilient, carries power, but this is going to be a test of IQ for him, and I like Caio here to get it done.
Okay, so stay tuned to see if Borralho is in any of his best bets or the parlay, as he mentioned. For now, let's get that main card back up there. 6-fight main card. Run us through the rest of your picks on this main card on Saturday, Ian.
So Rodolfo Vieira versus Cody Brundage. The number of minus 115 interests me because with Brundage, he doesn't do well against power punchers. However, with grappling, he's never been submitted, and we know Vieira is going to want to take this fight to the floor. I think if he does go to his back, or if he's able to keep the fight standing for a half a round, I think that if Vieira gets it done, it will be at the end of round 2, early round 3. This is an interesting one, Brett. Julian Erosa versus Fernando Padilla. Padilla's a good prospect. Hasn't fought in a little bit. Off his back, he has had submissions, but never against a guy in Erosa who is very tough, who's a seasoned vet. Erosa just cannot get in a brawl here. I'm worried about his chin. I do think he goes grapple heavy here and gets it done. This is one of my favorite plays on the card. Marcos Rogero de Lima. So yes, it will be a best bet. Waldo Cortez Acosta does not defend takedowns, does not defend leg kicks. When you're fighting a beast in de Lima who's a black belt up top and going to the ground, I think that number should be minus 300. And Keeneland versus Waters, this has got to be under 1.5. Keeneland is a finishing machine. Waters taking this on short notice. I think that's how it's going to go.
All right, and why don't you just keep churning here? Let's bring up the prelims before we get to the meat and potatoes of the show with the props and the parlays and everything else. Run us through the prelims for this UFC Fight Night.
Brett, overall, this is actually a pretty fun card. Not some of the biggest names, but a lot of action guys, minus this next one. Martin Buday versus Jake Collier. I do like Buday here. I think the size here, he can lean on Collier. This may go 3 rounds. It may not be the most exciting fight, but I'm going to lean Boudet. Cody Durden versus Charles Johnson. I've seen a lot of people looking at Cody Durden as an underdog here. Here's the difference for me, Brett. If Charles Johnson performs the way he should, the prospect we were getting out of LFA before he fought Muhammad Mokaev, this could be a minus 200 fight. He's really better everywhere. If we get a healthy Johnson, that sounds kind of funny. I'm going Charles Johnson there. Give me Stephanie Egger inside the distance. Journey Newsom against Marcus McGee. McGee taking this on short notice. Very tough on the feet. I'm flying with the underdog there. And last but not least, I'm going with North over Haley Cowan, who has had a lot of unluck getting into the UFC. I don't think she's going to get it done here.
Yeah, man, to your point, you look at those picks, and a lot of them, all under minus 200 favorites here, except for that Egger fight. So, yes, some close action here across up and down this Saturday card. How about your prop of the night, Ian? Something that we introduced about a month ago. I think we're like 2-2, 3-2 on this thing. Where are we going with this weekend?
3-2, and this one, I'm taking a little bit of a risk here. I didn't see too many ones I felt super confident, but I saw one that really struck my attention. Charles Johnson by sub is at plus 1,000. The reason why I like this is he should be the better wrestler than Cody Durden, although we've seen at times he gets a little tired. But Cody Durden's only 2 losses in the UFC have been by choke. One by guillotine, one by triangle choke. When he enters for those double legs, his chin's always up. Johnson does have a good guillotine, does have submission wins, and honestly, that's a pretty good flyer. You know, if he rocks Durden, Durden shoots in on a lazy double leg, we could see a choke there. So at plus 1,000, I'm going to take a flyer on that one.
Yeah, I really like that one, man. Charles Johnson, I believe, has underperformed so far in his UFC career. So if he just gets a little aggressive, I could see that being the path to victory for him. All right, let's move on quickly. Parker's parlay for this Saturday.
Well, we finally hit it last week, and I really like this one. I want to go 2 in a row. We're going with Song and Simone over 1.5 rounds. I mentioned earlier, I think this fight's going to go into rounds 3 and 4, even if there's a finish. I'm going to go Barrio here. I'm going Egger. This time just money line, although I really do think she gets it done inside the distance. And leading off the first fight of the night, Cowan North over 1.5 at plus 176. A little chalky, but I'm looking for consistency. I want 2 wins in a row. Let's do it this week and get it again.
Yep, 2 wins in a row with a parlay would be outstanding. How about best bets? What do you got for us?
I had to dig deep here. As you mentioned, the lines are tighter than I expected this week. So we are going to start off Ricky Simone at plus 5.5 points. I'm really feeling this line. I think he wins outright, but I'm going to protect that with the points. For those of you that can't get that, maybe your book doesn't offer it, I'm going Simone Song Yadong over 2.5 rounds. Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I have a really hard time not understanding why he's minus 300. Minus 180 for me is a steal. I know that Costa Cortez has a very good right hand, but against Chase Sherman and Bandera, his legs were kicked out. He was getting taken down. Against De Lima, if he takes you down, I don't think this guy gets back up. So I think we're getting a really good number there. Julian Erosa, please take this fight to the floor. You are a seasoned vet going against a prospect making a debut who's been out for 2 years. I'm going to go with the seasoned vet here. I think he's got to use that IQ. Charles Johnson at minus 140. I understand why people may go Durden, but for me, if he's healthy, he is better everywhere. And as long as he doesn't get lazy and run out of gas, Johnson's a good play. And Egger at plus 140. Her opponent is not also fought in 2 years. Egger goes for the finish. She's going to be aggressive. She's better everywhere. And those are going to be the best bets for the week.
Look at this guy. Says he has to dig deep for his best bets and then gives us 6 of them for a UFC Fight Night card. All right, one last order of business. It is the long shot parlay. We have yet to hit one. We've come close a few times. Today feels like the day, man. This feels like the week. Where are we going with the long shot?
We missed by 1 last week again. Believe it or not, it was the Jeremiah Wells by TKO or KO. I'm going to go Barrio by submission, Erosa by submission. I mentioned earlier that he's fighting someone who does have submissions off his back. However, not against someone as crafty on the ground as Erosa. And I'm going with McGee, just as an underdog here. We're going to get plus 2-3-1-1 on those odds. Only if we got to win these 3 fights. I think for Barajo, that is the way he gets it done. If he does win, maybe this is the week, Brett. Only 3 fights. Let's get it done.
Only 3 fights, and we're getting 23-1 odds, baby. You got to love that, and you got to love a busy schedule for the UFC in April, and then right back into it with May. UFC 288, we're going to be breaking down all of those fights, of course, all of Ian's picks, so tune in next week for a big pay-per-view in Newark, New Jersey. Until then, we will say goodbye and enjoy the fights this weekend. Take care.